Hello everybody and welcome to Organian's Puzzle Box. I'm very happy to announce that the Surface Forge has been updated now to 1.1.5, which is the newest update for the whole system, and it's now available on Fab, it's available on Patreon, available on ArtStation and Gumroad. Oh, and just a quick segue before I forget, the Surface Forge is currently available for free on Fab for a limited time, so if you want to grab it now, this is your chance. Obviously, any future updates will be available for free as well if you get it. But if you want to support the channel, take a look on Patreon, and for the price of a coffee, you can get it there as well. So yeah, let's get back to the video. Well, the main thing is going to be the blending between layers. It's been completely overhauled to make more sense and actually have continuity between blending between 1 to 2 materials to 3 materials. There's a lot more work going in to allow you to get such effects such as these, this sort of like concrete and then these bricks running across like that, and just having some seriously some serious wear and tear in between the multiple layers. So there's 3 layers at play here. You can see one here, you can then see the bricks, you can then see as I said, this type of concrete material. It has been quite a bit of an upgrade over to the parallax occlusion mapping height blending. So now it is possible to do height blending on parallax occlusion mapping. This is not supported in Unreal Engine 5.3 or 5.4 from my testing, because there is an error on the shader that is being thrown, which has nothing to do with the Surface Forge, it's more of a limitation of the system. So because of that, I would say don't use height blending with parallax occlusion mapping, but you can use height blending with nanite displacement. But in Unreal Engine 5.5, this is what we're in right now, all the way to 5.8, that's not really a problem. So the height blend overall has been greatly improved. The displacement has also been improved. The quality of the displacement has been improved. Some changes were also done to the decal system. Now, you might be surprised whenever you get close to this decal. For example, here in the example level, you get close to it, and its quality doesn't look very good, doesn't really hold up when you get quite close. I don't want you to think that this is an issue with the Surface Forge. This is actually an issue with how displacement and parallax occlusion mapping interact, and then they don't usually work very well together. Generally, you might want to have one or the other. So right now, this decal here has parallax occlusion mapping enabled, plus puddles, plus shadows. And you can see in here the blend is not very good. It gives you this impression that maybe the step count isn't high enough. But in actuality, if we pull this out and bring it over a flat plane without any nanite displacement, you will then notice how clean the decal actually looks over here. So what I'm basically saying is, don't fret. It's not really a problem with the system itself. When you look at nanite displacement here on this terrain, you can see it's enabled everywhere, and it's adding all this micro variation, and that's kind of what's offsetting the decal to look properly. But with that said, let me just bring a floor material out, because I wanna be able to kind of show you an example of how this new sort of system works. So I'm just going to put this down here, something like that, so we can view it. And then I'm going to go over to its material. And I will be taking this MISF floor concrete blocking. I'm going to drop that as a material here. And I'm going to open the material panel for it, just so we can clearly, give it a sort of a bit of a spin, so to speak. And what we will notice straight away when we go to material blending, that we are currently using 2-in-1 material blending. And the new feature of this patch is going to be the paint pair mode. So you want to enable this in your new project. And once you do that as well, you will then also have this overlap paint mode, which again, I suggest that you leave it on if you want to do some proper blends in between the layers. Now, we all know what nanite displacement is. We all know how it works. So let's just go on to parallax occlusion mapping. So right now there is nanite displacement here enabled. Okay, and this particular mesh does have some basic vertex color information. It's got a red over here and then green on the sides, and I believe it also has some blue. We can visualize this easily by going into modeling, going to attributes, paint vertex colors, okay, and then you can see if we have RGB selected, you can see where green is painted, red is painted, and blue is painted. But in our case, because there is no third layer enabled, which would come from 3-in-1 material blending, then the blue there isn't shown. If we actually tick the box, right, then we will get a blue. And as you can see, the third layer, the blue material C or blue, is actually this stucco material. So I'm not going to replace it with the color. I'm just going to leave that as contrast so you can kind of see what we're playing with. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to enable parallax occlusion mapping on all of these layers. So I'm just going to type in POM and then one by one just enable them. Because I want to show you the features of this. And by the way, these features, they're kind of documented a little bit in here. We have a new blend material function migration. So we've got a new paint mode. A new type of painting has been fixed now. The parameters are a bit swapped around. I've changed how the height blending is, the logic of how that works. We've got parallax occlusion map, height blend fix, plus a new control at the layer level. We've got a height blending category parameter is on by default, edge noise is off by default to save performance, and then we also have a parallax occlusion mapping light vector for shadows, which allows us to use custom fake shadows for parallax occlusion mapping rather than the directional light, and I will showcase how that works in just a little bit. Now we've enabled parallax occlusion mapping and something is completely odd or off about it. Okay, so you might be in a position where it looks like this. I mean, you've got some weird shadow blocky shapes in here. They don't actually follow the material. I mean, what's going on? And that's because all of these layers have world aligned textures enabled. And the problem with that is that parallax occlusion mapping does not work with world aligned textures in the Surface Forge. You can change it and make it work, but the cost performance will be massive. So by default, or let's not say by default, just as a rule of thumb, we will disable world aligned textures everywhere. So again, that's all going to be disabled now. And as you can see, that's already fixed the issue in terms of like parity between shadows and the texture. But there's another problem. This form of the parallax occlusion mapping, it feels a bit ghostly, especially if you look around here towards the edges. It just looks, see that? There's like a ghostly effect here. And this is primarily because if we go into modeling mode and if we go into attributes and paint vertex colors, if we just select this alpha here, you can see that there's an alpha painted. Okay, so this alpha is painted, which if we look into the material again, and you would have seen this in my previous tutorials, displacement mask is enabled and it's using the alpha channel. If we disable the displacement mask completely, and now it doesn't care about the alpha channel and we press accept, then that height is now back on. And by the way, this means that the height is back on for both nanite and parallax occlusion mapping. But there's another problem here. This is a nanite mesh. We're trying to use parallax occlusion mapping, and we also have nanite displacement enabled. This is extremely expensive. You don't want to do this. So at this point, we just go over here where it says material property override, go to enable tessellation, and we can disable that very quickly. And now only parallax occlusion mapping lives on a nanite mesh. And this gives us a very crisp detail, as you can see here. Now, I think the tiling on this layer is a bit odd, so I'm just going to put that to maybe something like a 5, okay? So we look at it and we're thinking, well, is the blend good enough, or why is it not blending very well? Or, you know, it really depends on what your options would be. But just to showcase the new paint system, if we are in 2-in-1 material, sorry, if we are in no blend mode, this is now no material blending, then everywhere we get material A. Okay, that's by default, and it's also on the red channel. Now, if we go to paint vertex colors, we select every single channel that we have. We then change the erase color to black, alpha to 0, press OK, and then we say erase all. Now we have a blank canvas to work with. Again, the red channel will be the one that populates everything because that is the default layer. So now with this enabled, we want to do 2-in-1 material blending. So once we enable that, nothing has effectively changed, even though we're loading a second layer. And that's because we haven't yet painted it. So we go into Paint Vertex Color. I'm going to change from from lit vertex color to original material. And then I'm going to only paint the red channel. Now, if you want to be able to paint with the same color on all channels, just make sure you change this from a red to a white and press OK. Now, this will allow us to paint what we want. So I am going to make this brush a bit smaller, and I'm going to paint red over here. Now, we know we've painted red because if we change the lit vertex color, you can see it there. But nothing has happened, and that's because red on a blank canvas is just going to be, well, it's not going to be, it's going to obviously add the red color here, but the blank canvas was already loading layer A, but now we've just made sure that this is layer A no matter what. That's what we told the system, okay? Now, if we take G and we paint it here, you can see that G is now overriding layer A, which is great. If we look at height blending, which is enabled, we got paint pair mode enabled and the overlap paint mode is enabled. If we disable paint pair mode, you can see in here that now it's no longer, it's basically no longer allowing the red channel to override, and well, it's sort of like defaults to the height blending wherever the red channel is painted. That's what the overlap paint mode off does. If you disable paint pair mode as well, then at that point, this has now become just red, and this is now defaulted to the blending between, the height blending between red and green at this point. Now, this gives you options. This just gives you a lot of blend options. That was the whole point of this. But the most default state of the material would be to enable paint pair mode, and then enable the overlap paint mode. And with that done, we can now also add a blue over here, and nothing happens because 3-in-1 material blending is not enabled. Now here's an interesting thing. If we take red again and we paint it here, you can see that we now have a height blend. If we take a green and we paint it here, we now have a green and red blend. So these are two different blends, because this is, so in this one, red is the intrusive blend, and in this one, green is the intrusive blend. Okay, now we have a height blend contrast. Obviously, if you put that to 0, then the contrast between these layers is going to be very subtle. Now this particular texture set is very aggressive, so the blend will look quite odd if you have a soft contrast. So we're going to put this to 10 to make it look a bit more, you know, fixed, or let's just say sharp. Okay, now we have a transition phase, so holding control and left clicking and dragging will allow us to control this transition phase. But just simply, you know, please bear in mind that with with the same painting but different applications of it, we've now managed to get two similar but different effects. This is very important because this allows for modularity and a lot more blending than usually is possible in a layer system like this. And now the kicker of all of it comes in the form of enabling 3-in-1 materials. So now we have the blue channel that's showing up here. And like I've said before, we can now paint green here. I've painted some green, and I'm also going to paint some red up here. So now we're telling the system that we want to blend in between all of these. Now you can see there's a bit of blending here between B and you know, the B channel and the green channel. Quite a bit of aggressive blending here between the red channel and the blue channel. So what we're going to do now, because we have this height blending enabled, A and C would be the blend between red and blue. So that's the contrast, and then we have a phase transition. So if we play around with this phase transition, you can see where that's being overtaken or overridden. So that is quite nice there. Now this one here is going to be phase B. This is the transition between the B channel and, sorry, the green channel and the blue channel. And if I, oh, sorry, no, I'm saying that wrong. That's the B is going to be the transition between the blue channel, the green channel, and the red channel. Phase C will be, like I've said before, the well, you'll notice right now, right? You can see there between the green channel and the blue channel like that. Interestingly, we can also paint green over here. See, now we've got green, red, and blue. And here we can paint red. So this allows for another variation. So within the same system, I think we've got roughly about 6 different variations that we can look at painting, right? And that's why I'm saying that you've got a lot of options basically with all these blends. You can create so many different variations and textures that I think you'll have plenty to work with and plenty of development to do in your environment. You can also, of course, go and disable paint pair mode entirely if you don't want that, and then you get these blends. Or you can enable it again, but instead disable overlap paint mode, which will change how things are, again, done. We can also look at disabling 3-in-1, and you can see if we disable 3-in-1, everything that's been done before remains. If you enable it, it's back on. So there's no particular issue with you going from 2-to-1 to 3-to-1. Okay, the pre-existing blends will remain as they were. In the previous version of Surface Forge, this could have been confusing, so I didn't want that. Okay, with that said, now let's go. So I think we're just about done with the painting side of things. With that said, let's just go over to this parallax occlusion mapping light vector. So what this is, if we enable it, we got here the custom light vector. You'll notice that if we just move the directional light, then the entire system fully reacts. The shadows, obviously the specular highlights, the shading in general will react to the directional light moving. If we enable custom light vector, this gives us a custom light source. And that custom light source is based on a vector. So in this particular case, we've got light direction, forward and backwards, right and left, and then the height. Now the height by default is set to 1, and I wouldn't use another value here if you want your shadow to behave pretty much as if it's at the, sort of like only controlled by left and right and forward and back. But for example, if you put the shadow over to 10, it will just be quite above us. The light will be just right above us. I think 10 might be too much of a value. You could go to like a 5, something. You can see in here, right? 1, 2, 3, okay? But as you go higher and higher, it starts to make the shadow, wash out the shadow, which is going to be a bit of a problem. If you go to 0, it's going to cause issues. If you go to -1, -5, again, it's going to cause issues. So 1 is the default. Go up to 2 if you want, maybe even 3, but I wouldn't go above that, right? Now, if we go to here, we've got 0.5. If we want to do -0.5, you can see now that that's shifted the shadow. And you can also shift this to 0.5, and you can see now it's shifted it again. So the shadow is now in this direction. And why this is useful? Well, the directional light is over there, and the shadows are facing the directional light right now. That's fine. I mean, you're just trying to art direct this, because this could be a parallax occlusion mapping system that's inside a tunnel. So if it's inside the tunnel and you are not using a custom light vector, but you do have a light in the tunnel that is shining light onto this surface, and this surface is only following the directional light that is in the level, then you're going to have quite a bit of an odd sort of transition, right? This allows you to art direct the position of that fake shadow, so it makes more sense in the environment. So yeah, that's kind of what's been added, I would say, in 1.1.5. Definitely big improvements in my opinion. Performance has increased, parallax occlusion mapping, has been improved, some new options, and yeah, this is just the road leading up to 1.2, which, quite a lot still in development anyway on it, but gonna add quite a few more extra options, such as a dedicated water puddle material function, a dedicated snow layer material function, dirt, grime, rust. All of this will be extra features that will be added in. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something about the Surface Forge today. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching, and remember, you can get this on Patreon or on Fab.